Hi everyone, Dave here, co-organiser and presenter for the Multidimensional Show. In today's episode, we have the pleasure of interviewing Amar Kaleka, an award-winning Indian-American film director. Following the tragic death of his father in the Wisconsin Sikh temple shooting in 2012, Kaleka became involved in politics, supporting gun control, progressive economic reform, and the peace agenda. In 2013, Amar directed the groundbreaking documentary Sirius, based upon ufologist Stephen Greer's book Hidden Truth, Forbidden Knowledge. Partially funded by a successful Kickstarter campaign, the film follows Greer's efforts to reveal information about how to initiate peaceful contact with benevolent extraterrestrials using the CE5 protocols, as well as top-secret energy projects and propulsion techniques. We hope you enjoy this fascinating interview with one of the most revolutionary filmmakers of our time. Please like and subscribe, and check out our other videos and interviews. Problems. Thank you for joining us today.
No problem, no problem. And there's so much to talk about. You guys have a third strike on the Brexit vote.
We don't
really follow Brexit.
No, I'll be honest, we don't. No,
we don't give it that energy because it just seems to be one charade, really, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yeah,
it's a political thing that people talk about here over what you guys are doing in England, and I know that economically it will have an impact.
Yeah, we're those kind of people who don't switch our television on at all, unless we're watching something educational or inspirational on Gaia or something. We don't watch the news. So,
I love Gaia.
Yes, so do we. We only started watching it a little while ago, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been watching something by David Wilcock called Wisdom Teachings.
Yeah, that's very good.
Oh, good. David's a good guy, usually. His book is good. He's an old friend.
Oh, you know him, do you?
Yeah, we usually hang out when I'm in LA.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I read his book, The Source Field Investigations, a few years back, and I couldn't put it down. It went everywhere with me. So,
I bet.
Yeah.
It is a good matter to research. What is the source field? How are people playing with it? Can scalar technology affect it? What are people doing to wrap the source field around humans? We each have one, and so can they tap it?
Yes. Yeah. Well, we all are the source field, effectively, aren't we? We're all connected in this kind of underlying field of energy. So.
Oh, we are definitely.
Yeah, the weather looks fantastic there.
It's cloudy. It's like London today.
Oh, really? Oh, there's this really bright light coming from behind you. It looks like
I'm thinking about, should I shut it a little bit more so it's not so bright?
It's fine. It makes it look really sunny and nice. Yeah.
It looks sunny, but it's definitely it fools the audience because it's so cloudy and cold over here.
Whereabouts are you, Amar?
Milwaukee.
Okay,
yeah. I remember last time we spoke, you said you were moving at that time. So, but
after the tragedy, then I moved here between 13 and 14, and then I ran for Congress against Paul Ryan, who is a major conservative right figure.
Yes.
And so I've stayed here in that time, and then I've been working on another film called Peacemakers.
Okay.
And that's about violence in America and violence abroad, and why are we so violent? How can we shift that paradigm?
That's a noble cause.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It needs to be addressed at some point, because I don't think we get to the higher conscious without losing our violent tendencies.
No. No, I agree.
What would you say the answer is?
I think the answer is we have to raise our children in an atmosphere that isn't violent. We have to be able to teach them the coping mechanisms around violence. Violence should be a last resort. And in America, especially, it's the diet. That's one of the things. The school to prison pipeline. So you see a lot of people becoming violent because America was founded on violence.
Yeah.
Yes, that's unfortunately true.
There's a kind of consciousness around that, isn't there? I think in nation there's something, in the shadows that needs to be worked through.
There is. That's a good way to put it. It's a conscious shift. So when will America become peaceful? That's the question.
Yeah, I think it starts with children, doesn't it? Definitely starts with the new generation. And the schooling system as well. The schooling system is set up to be very hierarchical, isn't it? And
it is
competitive, and I think that breeds that sense of passive aggressiveness, doesn't it? Which can then lead to, you know, frustration and violence.
I'm always preaching collaboration over competition, because competition will lead to people becoming more aggressive, even if it's verbally.
Yeah.
And that verbal aggression becomes an echo effect and people become violent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important that we're taught to work together and not kind of try and outdo each other in any walk of life. And certainly one of the kind of foundation principles that we push is the idea that we're all one and we're all connected. And I think if you approach each day in that mindset, then you don't have that competitive nature inherently inside yourself, because you're seeing everyone else as an extension of yourself, or as an equal at least. And it tends to, that is a good way to negate that kind of attitude, I think. So
well said, well put.
Yeah. So Amar, for the sake of the interview, obviously we've done some research on you, and I've known about you, well, we both have for several years. Obviously your documentary Sirius was my turning point and my wake-up call. But would you be happy to just have
every time you mention Sirius, I'll go like this.
Look behind me. Yeah. Could you give us a little brief kind of bio of yourself and your background? Are you happy to do that? Just
sure, I can try to summarize it.
Yeah, just for people who don't know you or not sure who you are, which I'm sure is not many people watching this, but
yeah, we seem to have a tight network of people who know the major players in the game.
Yes.
But I'm born in India but raised in the States, in the Midwest, and it seems like all of the problems of the nation fall on the Midwest. It's the area where the poverty begins. It's the area where the segregation is. It's the new South from the 1950s onwards. So I grew up, and I have 2 degrees. I have one in filmmaking, a master's in fine arts, and then I have one in philosophy, a BA. And over the last 10 years, I've been examining documentaries as a regular feature type of entertainment. So documentaries are hard to make because they take so long. They're hard to make because of the budgets. They're hard to make because of the travel. So Sirius was our first foray into crowdfunding a documentary. That way the film could be made by the people for the people.
Mm-hmm.
And that Sirius was, I think, my 4th feature film. And I've made some other films. I've made a horror film before that, and I've made a couple other, one called Getting Up that won Slamdance, which was about ALS. So I like documentaries that focus on a cause.
Yeah. Yeah. So what something I've been meaning to ask you, I know we've been chatting on and off now and again for the last few years, but what got you into the disclosure movement initially? What was the kind of draw for you that made you decide to make Sirius?
I think there was an awakening happening in those years where Ancient Aliens started lifting, and people would watch Ancient Aliens, and it really opened up people's minds to the idea that we might not know the true history of our own civilization, which is probably a question in everybody's mind all the time. What am I? Who am I? Where do I come from? And that question is going to last maybe 1,000 years or 10,000 years. So that's what opened me up to the disclosure movement. Now, the disclosure movement is complex, from what I find. From the military science, which I do have, I think, 5 courses in military science because I was a ROTC cadet.
Okay.
I wanted to become a 2nd lieutenant when I graduated college. So that aspect of disclosure then opens up a rabbit hole of corruption and misspending and using advanced science and technology, like from the 1940s onwards, against your own people.
Yeah.
And that's the scary part, because disclosure, we try to keep it light as possible, but at the same time, it's got such a dark rabbit hole that when you get into it, and when you look at scalar technology, when you look at propaganda machines, when you look at people mind bending, then you're in a difficult situation, because then you feel like you're just one of the gerbils in the cage running around, and you might be awakened at some point, but you still can't awaken the other 10,000 around you fast enough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What do you do with that kind of information?
I think you use media. I think they use media. We use media. People want to talk bad about mainstream media, and I tend to think mainstream media is just capitalistic. It's connected to that capitalism. For us, we use free speech in an effort to teach. You guys do, we do. I think everybody who is outside mainstream media looks at this as a teaching platform. What kind of questions can we talk about? Look at this. You're in England, I'm in Milwaukee. And we're able to have a great chat for an hour and befriend each other. And we might meet each other in a couple of years when I travel there or you travel here.
Yeah.
And that kind of world didn't exist before. So there's some bright spots.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The internet is a good thing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's like any technology, isn't it? Can be used for positive or negative.
Yes, it's very true. Yeah.
It's up to us to take the power, really, isn't it? As you're saying, using media for the benefit of all.
Yeah.
Well, after Occupy, after Standing Rock, and I was at Standing Rock for about a month and a half, after the Arab Spring, I helped tremendously. We gathered old cell phones and iPads, and people were gifting technology for me to send to Egypt. And what it turns out is, when the people get control of the media, the power structure even gets even stronger. The power structure and the antagonism gets stronger. That's what we saw at Standing Rock. It was a group of people who were using social media, and they would be praying just to stop people from digging on their own land or, taking over their own land. And they would get fired at with rubber bullets and water cannons. And this was in freezing temperature. So once the power structure sees that the people can take over the media and the airwaves, they get stronger.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful. Each increment of us using the technology, they get a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, there's a backlash, isn't there, unfortunately?
There is.
Yeah, it takes bravery and courage, doesn't it?
Yes,
to speak the truth.
It does.
It's something we've talked about is, we know that, the louder you shout, the more you're heard. So it's about finding ways to educate people peacefully, which can be difficult, especially when you start getting noticed. We've got friends who speak out about this subject in Wales, and they've been targeted and had slander and been hacked and stuff, and and they're not known worldwide for what they do, but they've had some backlash. So, but I think something we talked about is that you don't fight fire with fire. Basically, you don't use the same tools that are being used to suppress the information and the freedom of speech to combat it. You have to kind of come at it from a different angle, which is why we're about just helping people to realize who and what they are at its core, really, aren't we?
Yeah.
And to explore beyond, the day-to-day life and the five senses, and to ask the questions of themselves about what's really going on. And I think once you start asking the questions, the answers start to come. So the universe is waiting for you to ask those questions, I think, personally.
Yeah.
It really is. It really is. And the answers are there. They're blanketed under so many layers of sociological brainwashing.
Yeah.
And so layer after layer after layer, every time you step into one of those, let's call them challenges, the first one the reaction will be ridicule.
Yes.
And, you believe in aliens? Well, you believe in religion in a certain way.
Yeah.
we chuckle back, and it's not fire with fire, but it's really giving them a mirror to go, okay, just take a look at yourself. If you're targeting me with that, you should take a look at what you believe in.
Yes.
You know. But when it gets to the level, or it raises in pitch to the level like what happened with our temple, where a white supremacist who is a former army sergeant and who is had an MOS or a career in psych ops, when he comes through and starts shooting at your temple and starts killing people, it's a very Mark David Chapman type situation. And Mark David Chapman is the one who assassinated John Lennon.
Right.
And right after he was done, he read Catcher in the Rye on the street, which is the way to end the brainwashing. And the brainwashing is highly intelligent. It's able to speak to your mind and hear your thoughts, you know, or lead your thoughts.
Yeah.
So this scalar technology and the technology that we're up against is very, very conniving. It's very, very strong, you know, and it can target anybody. And so many people in America talk about, oh, I got hit with scalar today. Well, what happened? Well, in my mind, this person wouldn't stop talking about me wanting to kill myself. That's not your psychology. You know the difference between you talking to yourself and an outside force.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that technology? Scalar technology.
Scalar. There's quite a few antennas around the world. The best way I can describe it is, you know, on your radio when you're driving in the car, you have a limit on your radio frequencies. It might drop to 88 or 87.9, and it goes up to 108 or 107.9. But in reality, the radio frequencies go on for infinite numbers. Yeah. So each human has a fingerprint of the way we speak, the tone we carry, and I have a background in radio and television, so I can talk a little bit about just frequency. Your brain has a frequency, your mind has a frequency. If I asked you guys to each say the multidimensional show in your brain, it'll carry a pattern that some supercomputer mixed with old radio technology, mixed with new radio technology could pick up and actually read your mind.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to say the multidimensional show. And everybody notices it goes faster in your brain, like reading. So, so scalar technology is the technology that is able to harness all this communication, jam it into a supercomputer, and look for targets. They'll look for ISIS targets. They haven't been looking for white terrorism or white domestic terrorists, but they should. They should point to that.
Yeah.
Now that ISIS is gone, where's the next battlefront?
Yeah. Yeah. Who's the next enemy? Yeah.
And I think it's going to be neo-fascism, or it's going to be the same enemy that we took up in World War II and World War I. As we become a diverse community, there's all these things that happened in the past cycle that'll happen again. And it keeps going.
If we allow them to, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Or if the powers that be want to push us into that conversation, which we can then dismantle, you can dismantle, I can dismantle, Rachel can dismantle. But there's some people who can't dismantle it. They've grown up with too much trauma.
Yeah.
You know, like look at the Trump supporters. They cannot decipher when he's giving them bad rhetoric.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of our kind of core ideas is not to focus on the stuff that you don't want to persist. It's kind of from the law of attraction kind of way of thinking, is that we don't even give the negative stuff as much as possible. I mean, obviously you've got to be aware of it. You've got to have some kind of knowledge of what's going on, but we don't feed it. We don't give it any energy. We try and focus very much on the change we want to see and not the system that's already in place in all areas of life, you know, not just politics, but communities and ourselves and family and everything, is to focus on what you want to see and not what you want to remove. And a lot of people might not understand that mindset or think, well, how are you going to change anything if you're not doing something about the problem? But kind of from a spiritual perspective, it's kind of the more energy you give something, the more it persists.
Everything is energy, isn't it? So
it is
about what energy do you put out, and What influence do you want to have?
Yeah.
Well, let's just consider, if you look at the scalar technology, could we map, let's say, the 300 million Americans and be able to jam all their information into a supercomputer? And if we are able to do that, then even your thoughts or the meditations affect the supercomputer.
Yeah.
You know, and so the Tibetans, the Dalai Lama, wide variety of Vedics, they really, really believe this, and they've believed this for now 2,000 years, that our mind is interconnected.
Yes, very much so.
So if our mind is interconnected, I could affect the universe just by sitting cross-legged and saying the mantra of peace over and over, you know.
Yeah.
But this was proven a few years ago in the States, wasn't it? I think there was an experiment done with 8,000 people meditating. I forget where it was.
There was one in New York, wasn't there?
There was one in New York, one in Iowa. It had to do with transcendental meditation. And it's been done, I think, philosophically or logically. You can write out the argument that we're all interconnected spiritually or consciously. And I think what ended up happening was it's the peace effect, the Maharishi effect, where enough people were meditating on peace and the crime rate dropped for a significant amount of time. I think it was like a month. And they would have them come in and out and do the meditations over and over. It kind of seems like a ripple. Like if you know that somebody's meditating on peace and you see them, then this ripple forms.
Yes.
Yeah, you feel it, don't you?
You do.
You do. It's like when you go into places where there's been regular meditation, you feel the peace, you feel a different vibration there.
You do. Even outside, even as you're walking in, and even when you leave, there's still that resonant effect of, I can think about being in that temple, and you still feel the peace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there's no kind of distance, really, is there?
No, it crosses the path of light. So the speed of light. Right now, a lot of contactees approach me. They will tell me a story. They'll tell me, okay, I was in bed and I was starting to fall asleep, and then all of a sudden my soul got lifted up and out, and all of a sudden I was traveling through the universe, and I met this being, and the being looked like this, and they'll try to draw it. I have a book of many drawings, and that's if there was an advanced civilization that had already tapped it, or humans in the future have already tapped it and are trying to ripple their way back to affect us or help us, so we don't destroy ourselves, or so we grow up better. That's exactly how it would be. It'd be in your hypnagogic state right before you go to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is the case.
Yes.
I know when I first started experimenting with contact work, after watching Sirius, actually, I did it by myself initially. I tell this story to everyone. I'll keep it brief because it's in some of our other interviews. But I think it was once I realized that there was kind of like this universal field of consciousness, and it was no effort to tap into it, that it was an effortless thing to do, was the night I had my first contact experience. You know, when I sat under the stars and realized that we're all connected and we're all one, and it was simply a matter of putting the call out and genuinely wanting it, that I had a craft appear, you know, and it was one of the most magical moments of my life, if not the most, you know, because it was a paradigm shift. You know, it changes the way you look at things completely. So,
it does. Well, and you're in a very powerful area, because you have the Druidians, or the Druids, who are probably doing contact work at Stonehenge.
Yes.
You know, at Stonehenge.
Yeah.
And we do contact work in Wisconsin around these marshes, because we're by the Great Lakes. So we end up having a lot of great contact. I'll give you one story that kind of can illustrate it, but your story, I want to hear more about it, because did the craft slow down, or did it shine a bright light, or?
It was an orb. It was a giant orb that just appeared in the trees about 20, 30 feet away from me, with no other light source behind it. Just popped in out of nowhere, drifted across in front of me for a few seconds, and then collapsed and vanished. But there was this kind of overwhelming sense or knowing of somebody being there and acknowledging the fact that I'd put the call out, and this energy, this kind of feeling of love, and it reeled me. Actually, it left me reeling.
Well, it gives you this pathway for the rest of your life.
It does.
From one experience in a very small amount of time, your whole spirit has shifted.
Yes, exactly. And and from that moment, it then accelerated, because it was about 2 weeks leading up to that of sitting out under the stars on my own in the evenings and nothing happening, to this suddenly having this craft or manifestation of intelligence, whatever it was, as it wasn't physical, or at least it didn't appear physical, suddenly popping in. And then after that, it was pretty much 100% hit rate. Every time I tried, I'd get fast walkers in the sky or craft. And my story is another story. We can put another documentary together about that. But since that day, I've done contact work, and Rachel has a history of contact work as well. And that's how we found each other and met, because we both do CE5. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So CE5 makes another romantic bond.
Yes.
Yes. Thanks to the aliens, we are together.
Yeah. Thanks to our star family, we've met. Yeah.
You've been ordained. You've been ordained. The story I'll tell you is, when we were doing a contact in the marsh, I had a lady who was with us. Maybe she was 65 years old, 63.
Yeah.
And I noticed she didn't bring her glasses that night. Because I usually see her with her glasses. So I just thought maybe she didn't need the glasses. Maybe she could see far, but she couldn't see close. And we had we had exactly 5 people around a circle. So we were doing our normal Vedic meditations, and then we'd do a call out. Then we'd lift our consciousness out into the universe, and we put another call out once we were out there. We'd geolocate. And out of nowhere, we were taking a break, and when we take a break in our contacts, one of the methods that I use is that we all turn our backs to each other and look out into our respective angles of sky.
Okay, yeah.
So we all observe when we do a 5-7 minute break, because sitting cross-legged for a long time does lower your blood flow, which will lower your ability to consciously shift. Yeah. So as she's up there looking, she says, "I see something," and it was way in the distance, and it was this little orb floating towards us. So I didn't even I just touched her hand, and I didn't look to where she was looking. I was like, "Karen, what do you see?" And I touched her hand, and my head immediately went boom, boom, and it was right there. Right, I could see it floating in. So then we started doing the mantra of calling it closer and asking it to come closer. Soften the eyes, soften the face, ask it to come towards us, and it started coming towards us. Then we asked it to brighten up, and it brightened up for us on cue over and over.
Wow.
And it floated by us, and it looked like it was, how you can tell when a light is wrapping around the earth, like a jet is using the gravitational field to actually land or curve around with the earth. This one looked like it was just flying through. Like straight through. And so I asked her later that night, I was the one giving her the ride home, and it was about 4 a.m. And I said, "Karen, I noticed you don't have your glasses on." And she goes, "Oh my God, I don't have my glasses on." And she reacts in a way that is solid truth that she didn't know.
Yeah.
And I said, "Can you see far? Can you see near?" And she goes, "I can't see either." And then I said, "Karen, how did you see that little dot that was smaller than a star, way in the distance, moving, enough for us to keep calling it closer?" And by the time it got to our, let's say, 45 degrees up and passing through, it was brighter than the moon.
Wow.
It was humongous too. It was maybe 5 to 7 stars in length and circumference. And she just was shocked, because that's where we all started discussing the ability of, if we become resonant together in that circle, maybe our eyesight actually extends.
Ah, okay.
Because why would she not notice?
Fascinating.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, we've seen with a different kind of way, different kind of set of eyes, I suppose.
Yeah. Maybe there's a sight which doesn't rely on the eyes as well, or is not entirely dependent on it. I know.
That's a good way to put it.
I went out with a group in Oxford. I'll keep this brief, but I went out with a group in Oxford many years ago, not long after I'd first got into contact work. And we had 2 boomerang-shaped craft appear in the clouds above us that were flitting back and forward, kind of very distinctly, kind of moving and stopping, moving and stopping. But afterwards, when we got back and wrote up our field notes about what we'd seen, everyone had seen them in a different color. So, I wrote down that, I'd seen these 2 orange semi-translucent craft, and the sort of girl next to me went, they weren't orange, they were green. And then the guy who was leading the group says, no, they weren't, they were white.
Yeah.
One of these kind of high strange things when you have a contact experience is you don't necessarily all see the same thing either. So which makes me wonder if part of the experience doesn't happen through the eyes.
No, it's consciousness, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's connection.
Yeah, if it's through the
I
heart.
think so.
Or, through consciousness.
And you know how in yogic philosophy we have different colors for the chakras?
Yes.
We've tended to notice that even when somebody is more heart-centered, they might see the pink color or the red color a little bit more in their day-to-day, right? Their eyes actually gravitate towards it. And it could be that in that group, everybody had a different vibration, or they were unified vibrations and each one was taking one part of the light.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
But this contact work is highly important, right?
Yes.
I know that the military sciences and each country is doing some sort of this type of work. When they're up in the sky flying a jet, they see very strange things and they come back down and talk about it. I can't believe how many significant, defense secretaries or admirals or, colonels in the military go out and do this work but don't tell anybody because they're so scared of the ridicule.
Yes.
In their line of work, the ridicule it could end a career.
Yeah.
Yeah, same for scientists, isn't it? And researchers. They're going out on the limb, aren't they? They research anything that's high, strange, paranormal. But I think it's shifting, isn't it? There are shifts happening.
It does feel like it.
Yeah.
It does feel like it. I mean, I commend all the people who've come forward. I know it's a couple of years ago now, but it's probably worth mentioning because still not a lot of people know about this, that on Stephen Greer's website, he's got all of the witness testimony of all the people who have come forward, and people ask, oh, where's the evidence? And I go and have a look there.
Yeah, go take care of the testimony, listen to the testimony.
Yeah, prepared to spend a whole weekend sat listening to these people because they have come forward and they are out there and they're all credible. So, and it's
it must be shifting from the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s to now, because now we can have open conversation and nobody really confronts us or messes with us or ridicules us that much.
Yeah. I think that there is a shift happening globally as well. I think as more people wake up to the truth that we are not alone and we are very much being engaged with and visited by benevolent, loving beings from elsewhere, as well as maybe some others, but we don't focus too much on those. I think it does. Who was the chap who spoke about the morphogenic fields?
Rupert Drake?
Rupert Sheldrake.
Sheldrake.
I don't know if you've come across his work, but he talks about this idea of collective consciousness, but from at a species level, and that information is shared and kind of in a holographic way. So as an idea grows within a collective, it will spread faster and faster, like a snowball effect. So, and I think that's tied into Gaia wanting to shift as well, herself, and it is gaining momentum and acceptance because more and more people are coming to it. So
I agree. There's the 1001 Monkeys effect, where they had the Japanese experiment where the monkeys would wash the coconuts off in the water.
Yes.
They couldn't eat it with the sand. And then in an island across the way, and then in Japan mainland, the monkeys started doing the same thing. Yeah. And there must be some holographic exchange happening. And now, can we as scientists tap that holographic exchange? And I'm of the belief that we already have.
Yes.
I'm of the belief that we're way past that in our science. When America spends almost 1/3 or 1/4 to 1/3 of its budget on advanced technology, and so do many European nations. Russia does. Russia has spent the most money probably, and then Far East nations like China and Japan have been doing this research for now 30, 40 years after the atomic bomb. Because everybody wanted to know, how can you harness that much energy in such a little device? Then once you start looking at physics and energy exchange, then you start going through all these rabbit holes, and scientists must search them down.
Yeah, I think the agenda is to kind of harness the power of the universe and have kind of supreme power. But I think we need to, as the people, we need to kind of realize our own power, don't we? That's being forgotten. We're not. It's deliberate, isn't it? We're not told. No, the information is not shared.
Sometimes it's not forgotten. Sometimes I believe it's really taken away. And I'm not somebody who wants to talk about the darkness, but at times it feels like little children are put into school and their creativity bends the opposite way. Their ability to use what's in the third eye and what's in the heart chakra, they're really turned down.
Yeah, they're shut down. Yeah.
Well, I homeschool my daughter. I homeschooled her for about 2 years from the age of 6, and she's now 8. And we had the most profound homeschool day 2 days ago. We were talking about source and how source is in everything. And, talking about what she wants to do in her next life, and she wants to be a cat or a tiger or something. Yeah. And she really got it. She really got it. It was a beautiful moment. She said, "So everything is within me." And I said, "Yeah." And I didn't say this to her. She just got it. And it's such a lovely feeling to be able to do this. And we're so fortunate in this country, in the UK, to be able to homeschool. I don't know what it's like in the US. I know some countries frown upon it. They don't make it that easy. But wherever there's opportunity, homeschooling, I think, is the way forward.
Yes, I think so too. I think step by step, because they're going to get a better parenting. Just imagine in America, it's like a factory. You send your kid to school. You don't see them again till 4 or 5 p.m. Mm-hmm. And then you have 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. where you can be with them, and then you go to sleep.
Yes.
So as a parent, if you can only have your child 5 hours a day, what else are they getting in the last 10 hours that you don't know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that time in the evening with them is not usually quality time anyway, because you're cooking and cleaning and preparing for the next day, and one's tired because it's the wrong part of the day to be expressing creativity and thinking and exploring. So yeah.
Well, and with education, I've been working on this model called the time-based economy. Okay. And instead of capitalism or socialism, we haven't used the mathematics of time yet. But time itself can be a currency. And so with this time-based economy, right now it seems like students are indentured servitude. They have to go to school. They're forced, they're mandated to go to school, which creates an economy of schooling. With a time-based economy, the child's time would be factored in, that they would get paid to go to school.
Right,
so,
okay.
Because that type of slavery should go by the wayside in the next 20, 30, 40 years, because you can't mandate people to go learn. And it's hard work.
Yeah.
To use your brain all afternoon, 8 hours.
Very right.
And they're being told what to learn. It's not like they really have a say in the matter either. There's a curriculum which says you will be taught X, Y, and Z, and you'll be judged on whether you absorb that information. And if you don't, then you'll do it again until you do know it.
Yeah, there's consequences and there's fear bumped into.
Yeah, the modern schooling system is largely brainwashing and creating the next generation of drones, I think, to keep the system going. I came to that realization a while ago as well. I
think we all have, and I think children come to that realization at a young age, 13, 12, 10, 14, and when they do, now they're at direct odds with the teacher, because the teacher has now become this, let's say, officer of the security force brainwashing. And now the student wants to go into this freedom or this creativity, then there's probably things evolutionarily that are happening over the last 40 years that we're thwarting, we're dulling our evolution, and at the same time we're heightening our evolution in certain ways. This very drone-like mentality, got to get to work, got to do this, got to do, we're doing that, and we're creating robots out of each other. Instead of allowing each other to grow into the being that might be on this planet, or might have been on this planet earlier.
Yeah.
But I also think that from adversity can come great acts. And Einstein also said that with every force there's a counter force.
Equal and opposite.
Reaction, right? So I feel that applies to people. I mean, I don't know what your reaction was when your father was shot down dead, but you know, I know from my own experience that adversity can really, you know, transcend you. It can be the catalyst for something great to happen. You know,
it was a complex emotion, you know, because Sirius at that point, we started a crowdfund in April, and by May we had enough money to start production. So we started production and started filming things and meeting with military officials because we really wanted to get to show a device. The device we ended up showing in the film actually is in Wisconsin. So we had to get military clearance to actually go into the bunkers, and these bunkers are deep.
We hope you're enjoying the interview so far. We'll be back after this short break.
Humankind stands on the brink of a radical shift in consciousness as we approach a critical time in history. There must be a better way.
The relentless pursuits of modern living are stripping us of our connection to nature, each other, and ultimately our true selves. Is this all there is?
Our very survival depends on a quantum leap in our understanding of the universe and our place within it.
Thanks for watching. We now return to our interview.
It's a complex matter. Sirius just started coming out and going forward. And then all of a sudden in August, right after the June, my temple is attacked, our temple is attacked. And this is one of 5 temples that we've built as a family in this very racist, backwards, segregated, impoverished area of the Midwest of America. And so for it to be attacked, and then my father to be inside and attack the person with the gun and fight it off and die ultimately a hero, because nobody else would fight back against this guy. And my dad had no gun. He had a fruit knife that he went to go attack this guy with. And my dad was older. He was 65. All of this started spinning me in a direction that I didn't know I would go. So one of the spins was, did it happen on purpose? You know, here's a former Army sergeant, white supremacist. We know that the white supremacy, the Klan ring, the neo-Nazi ring, all connect in militarism. They connect in policing, they connect in militarism. Then it also spun me in the direction of obviously grief and the human side of losing your father or your mother, you know, because my mother was inside, and ever since that day, she's been a little different.
Yeah.
You know, seeing somebody, you know, do that and being inside will make you have post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
At the same time, seeing my community ripped apart around me, the Punjabi people, the Sikhs, the Vedics, they're very insular. You know, they're not trying to be, but we have beliefs like reincarnation that don't all, you know, gel completely with heaven and hell approach.
Yeah.
You know, and then we get looked down upon, or people will say we're polytheistic when we're monotheistic, and they'll spin our own culture around us, and we have no control over it because there's very few who speak, you know, good English or are able to get to the depths of the Western culture and be able to compare the two. So all this is happening, and now that it's been 6 years, I am leaning more and more and more towards the idea that this was done more on purpose than on accident.
Okay.
You know, because $500,000 raised online in, as you guys know, in this field of disclosure is a dangerous moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, obviously Steve is also got a lot of baggage around him that we didn't know at the time. And quite a few people that he's connected to are older military men. And older men, I think, are some of the most dangerous. And I don't mean to say it in a bad way, but older men have nothing to lose in creating these plots or plans and trying to manipulate the younger generation. So that's one of the things I want to talk about, because since then to now, I've never had voices in my head all my life. Even when I read, I can hear my own voice. So I've had a very clear conscience, you know. Over the last 2 years, that conscience has been muddied by outside voices. And I could hear the tone, the tremor, everything about that person's voice. Like, and I'm imaginative. I can think, okay, let me think of Martin Luther King's voice, and I obviously would hear Martin Luther King's voice.
Yeah.
That's different than Joe Blow on the street, who you've only met 7 times, all of a sudden in your head. You know, there's a very big difference of that. So that's why I wanted to bring up the scalar technology, because this technology does exist. It's as old as 1952, 1951, where they can use radio signals to create these types of Manchurian candidates, or these people that will carry on an assassination plan. Yeah. And of course, if you have the technology, do you need to test it over and over and over in order to actually become good with the technology? And then who do you test it on? So they test it on their own people. And so since that day, August 5th, 2012 to now, we've had on average 300 mass shootings a year in America. You know, and before that, 2012, we're talking about maybe 20 to 30 per year.
Wow.
Right? And nobody talks about them, because you got to look at how large the states are. You guys are in England, so I'm going to describe it to you.
Yeah.
Each state, each city has its own newscast for that area.
Yeah.
Very few people watch the national news, and when you watch the national news, it only brings up certain things, the same stories over and over.
Yeah.
So of the 50 states, they each have like a major city in them. So let's say there's about 75 major cities. In those 75 major cities, you're seeing people go off the limb and shoot their family 3 at a time. You're seeing people go off the limb and shoot a store complex 3 or 4 at a time. And nobody's hearing about the 350 mass shootings. You're only hearing about the let's say the hyper, you're hearing about the most popular ones.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about that because it's almost like I'm asking from America as a beacon for help to get this message out that they are doing this to their own people. And at some point with a show like yours, we can at least get to certain countries to say, hey, can you come and help and look at this? Can you help send the UN? Like, we asked for the UN to come during Standing Rock because some of the things they were doing with the technology was so scary. I've seen ice storms form out of nowhere. Right. The one ice storm knocked me off the road completely. And it was, when you look at the weather pattern was moving west to east, and all of a sudden it just ramped north and hit us.
Right.
So
It's been intentionally redirected, do you think, as an attack to disperse what was going on?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, especially in that area, because it was like, we know the control of weather is there.
Yeah.
And that should obviously scare people, but what they're doing now with it is they're tampering against climate change. So that's a difficult one.
So do you think the scalar technology is being used as a kind of subtle, covert form of terrorism on the American people? So obviously, I mean, let's roll with this for a minute, because I have no problem accepting this is real, because I've read about it before. I believe it was a precursor to scalar technology that brought down the Roswell craft, actually. It was something along these lines that brought the craft down, an early form of it. So, and obviously, if we're all connected in the source field and we can all tap into each other's thoughts, and they've taken a very kind of cold steel militaristic way of tapping into that, it would make sense, I suppose, that would become weaponized and used as a subtle form of control and terrorism. Because rather than someone running down the street and with bombs strapped to them or something, if there's a voice in their head that's telling them to go and gun down their own family, there's almost nowhere to point the blame other than at that person, is what I'm kind of getting at. So you can do this on a kind of widespread basis around the world or the country without anyone knowing where that is originating from.
It's covert, isn't it?
Yeah, covert is the word I was looking for, sorry.
It is. It's almost a perfect crime, because there's only that person. And have you ever heard of Naomi Klein, Professor Naomi Klein from Canada?
I have not. Have you?
Familiar, but no, I don't know much.
If you look at her documentary called The Shock Doctrine,
okay.
And she's got a book and she's won many awards, and she's lauded around the world, but not in America, because what she uncovered was, and I'm not too far from Chicago, I'm only about an hour and 15 minutes away. In Chicago, which has some of the largest antennas, the Sears Tower, quite a few of these very large antennas on the top of skyscrapers. In the Chicago school, they figured out a philosophy of, if they could shock the people, if they could put them through turmoil, whether it be war or murder or riots, that the economy will rise afterwards incrementally in those areas. So it's almost like they shock an area in order to grow an economy in that area, because now more and more safety has to be built on it. The biggest economic driver in America is safety, guarding it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, hey, I pricked myself here and now I have to put a Band-Aid on it, and that money.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have to go and buy the Band-Aid to put on.
Yeah, security technology.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrifying and sad, really, because the underlying word here that comes to mind, as I'm sure it does for you, is that it's fear that's driving everything. It's keep people frightened and in a state of this kind of fear mentality, kind of thinking from the lizard brain, this kind of survival.
Yeah.
And that's what's driving and keeping the powers in place that are there.
The best answer to the fear mechanism, the base of the spine. Scientists always talk about a fight or flight system.
Yeah.
But the reality is, there's always been a unite system. There's fight, flight, or unite. And unification, like for example, if you're sick, you don't run from the cold. You don't fight the cold. You actually are laying down and letting your body unify its field.
Yeah.
So that it can recover. There's a lot of things that science doesn't talk about with that, because they're also brainwashed into this fight or flight mentality. There's two options.
Yeah.
And that's definite in America. And I know you guys know many Americans, and you know how you go back and forth. And you can tell there's a significant cultural difference with how Americans talk and act versus Europeans or versus Far East Asians or other developed world nations. And one of them is that they're very dualistic.
Yeah.
Yes.
In both ways. They either think it's either this or A or B, or they're dualistic. They're very challenging and competitive.
Yes.
So this type of stuff has now saturated our area, and we're living in in that type of area, in the breadbasket of America, where the coasts get most of the money, on the northeast, southeast, all the way around.
Yeah.
Whereas Wisconsin, Illinois, all these areas, they're left alone. And so did the scalar technology make its way back onto the people? That's usually the question I'm asking myself.
Yeah, which is a horrifying thought, really.
So what do you feel is the solution? I know you mentioned the media, but what about the media? What message do you want to give out to people? How do we kind of guard ourselves?
I think step one is disclosure, transparency, because scientists who aren't in the know should become part of the research and the study. Because scalar can lead to beautiful things, like, for example, telepathically controlling your car. These things actually can be done, and you can just have a little, button or a pin that you put on, and now you and your car can talk to each other. Another way to use it is for documenting your life. You keeping in a telepathic journal that shows up somewhere. So, for example, it's your own Google. Hey, I need to remember 3 p.m. call Rachel and make sure we book the show. You're doing it telepathically, and it's showing up in your computer system. So there's a way to, like you said earlier, either we use the technology that exists, or we keep fighting against it and allow them to fight against us. Yeah. And I think we have to move towards that future view of, we can use the technology. First, tell us what it is. We're not going to be as mad with you as you think we are. Second, tell us what you did with it, what type of populations you've used it on and hurt, because those people need to be repaired, and they need to be accepted. And then I think ultimately, once we move through the forgiveness phase and the grace and the redemption, then we can look at this technology as something that can really boom, a supercomputer that helps rather than tries to control us. Right now, the supercomputer is trying to control us.
Yes, I would go along with that. To go back to the word forgiveness there is very interesting. I'd like to come back to that in a minute, but something we talked about earlier, which I think is important here, I think you mentioned, is that we have a lot of these abilities inherently anyway, without the necessity for mechanical intervention, I think, as well. And certainly, I think a lot of the advanced ET races that are coming here, I know Greer talks a lot about the fact that they use consciousness-assisted technology and technology-assisted consciousness. And I'm all for that idea in a vast universe that a lot of races will have advanced technology. But I also strongly believe that these abilities are inherent in all sentient beings and can be tapped into without the need for technology. And I think that's an angle worth remembering and exploring as well, is that in part of remembering who we are and what we are is that we are source and we are the infinite, and that these things are gifts which are given freely and naturally to everybody. And like you said, how we've forgotten or had them taken away through brainwashing and suppression, that we should naturally be able to do these things, and that we can. And I kind of see again, I don't like to use an us and them mentality, because we're all one, and we shouldn't treat the military industrial complex as the enemy. I don't necessarily think, because they're just people like us. But they've taken a very kind of disconnected way of trying to harness and use these abilities through tech. Would you agree with that? Do you see where I'm going with this?
I see where you're going with this, and I think I'm going to reference a book to you guys, or to your audience. There's a book called Power of Thoughts that was written in India maybe 300 years ago, 250 years ago.
Okay.
And Power of Thoughts was written by Koji, Khoji, Koji.
Okay.
And he goes through this telepathic expression. And telepathy is a very strong and very real thing that we all have inherently in us, but we don't use it as much. We use our verbal mouth. So this is becoming more formed evolutionarily. But this telepathic exchange happens so often, and we could actually form this.
Yes.
So the best way to think about it is, are we evolving the right way? Are we evolving the way of the right path versus the left or the right path, the middle path? And there is a word on telepathy that I'd love to talk to you guys about, because I think that's where the scalar technology starts taking over. It's when people become telepathic and they don't know. So now somebody's able to tap their mind. They're old enough. Have you ever thought about it? Like maybe from a child through the age of 20, you might not be telepathic. You might be learning how to become developed. Then by 21, 23, 25, you start realizing I have a conscience that talks to me. It tells me, oh, don't burn yourself there, or don't do this. Well, what if we could get our 12-year-olds or 11-year-olds to be telepathic? Wouldn't that give them a better life path? So the telepathy is one part of the conversation that is, and it's a hot button word, right? Like as soon as I say it, all the supercomputers in the world are going off right now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We're well aware that telepathy is a very real phenomenon, because we have a very strong link between the two of us. Which goes beyond the norm. You know, we can hear each other's thoughts from other ends of the house and answer questions without saying anything. And it's been going ever since we met. Actually, we have a very strong link. So and
you might have in lifetimes past or lifetimes future, because then we start falling into our Vedic philosophies of telepathy. How that force that you can hear inside of you might have been a living force for a long time. And the shell might keep changing, but you are you.
We'll very much subscribe to that. We're both of us, I think, strong believers in the reincarnation concept, and that the soul itself is going through a journey of learning, and this body is a temporary vehicle to balance karma and learn certain lessons. And when we're done, we come back and carry on somewhere else, maybe not even on Earth, maybe on the other side of the universe, in a completely different form. The same spark of consciousness, but in a different form to learn different lessons. So,
absolutely. And language acquisition just helps us tap it.
And we very much subscribe to that idea.
Sorry, Rachel.
We're not just here once. You were saying
and to express and to be creative. It's not just about hard knocks. It's about actually the joy of being in existence, isn't it? And being co-creative.
Yes, very much so.
And I think it's worth remembering that, isn't it, in this world of lot of fear and doom, remembering our own power to shape and create our reality. And it'd be great to get that message out to the young people. Balance, really.
This message of balancing the peace within each other at the right time and in the right moment, I think it's happened before. I think each prophets or each of the powerful women that have been gunned down tragically, like people don't talk about the assassinations of character on women, from the Blair Witch trials to what's happened in Salem in America, or Blair Witch trials. Sorry, I just used Blair Witch. I used a film for a real event, the Salem Witch trials, and what happened in Europe during the rise of the Catholic Church. It's amazing, because if we have that feminine energy and we have that ability to understand Gaia in the feminine, then I think we find the balance with how to use the technology. Right now, there is no balance. The technology is automation is taking over. Robots are becoming more and more introduced because they're 24-hour-a-day slaves. There's quite a bit of problems with our media and technology. Like we can all talk about which part of the mainstream media is bent, and that creates friction and tension, which creates riots and creates political turmoil. So it's almost like we're fighting entropy. The reality is science is taking us this way, but we are fighting it to say, hey, we're more unified than most. We're more unified than dolphins. Let's use that to evolve higher and higher and higher. And maybe it is by this exchange. Just this simple, hey, here's a conversation. We haven't met face to face yet, but now I'm talking about Koji. And now you might go pick up the 38-page pamphlet and go, oh my God, this physics that was being done in 300 years ago was really natural, because there was no real electricity at the time. But they had gotten to the point pre-industrialization that they could talk about innate things that are with us. Like, for example, why can a sick warrior walk up to a horse, touch it, and, you know, think to itself, I'm going to ride you today in battle? Or an elephant. Who telepathically exchanges with an elephant to ride them against Alexander the Great?
Yeah.
You know, and these types of things must have real life meaning.
Yes.
That we must be able to do it right now. Just imagine if we could telepath with our car, you know, and we could turn it on from here, point there, without these radio signals going in and out of our lives with the little clickers.
Yeah.
You know, because all of that affects here too, and people don't realize that that's how sensitive the being is. That's how sensitive the frequency is.
Yeah. Now, we're privy to that as well. We're part of a campaign here in the Midlands to try and boycott 5G being rolled out across the UK, because we're aware of the damage that it does on a cellular level and beyond. So it's something we've got involved in as well.
Yeah, and how we can sort of combat or kind of protect ourselves from the effects of 5G and EMF frequencies. So we had a conference here, didn't we?
We did,
some speakers, and we've got a Facebook group, so we kind of share information for people.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
The thing about these technologies, I spent about 7 months away from my phone and without the computer this last year, and it's only because I had a tragic event happen. I've had quite a few traumas after dads where, you know, this thing happened and this thing happened, and it seems like somebody is around following us, and by us I mean high profile survivors of these mass tragedies, because they're trying to make sure that some of these things don't get talked about. So one of them that happened was in June. I went to go meet with an informant from a white supremacy cell, and he was a state police officer. Okay, so we have the local police, we have the federal police, and we have the state police. Okay. And then in between that is there's election cycles to elect a sheriff or to elect certain people to the federal posts. This gentleman wanted to sit with me at a diner and tell me everything that they can do technologically. Like, for example, plate scanners. He started with such a simple technology, but it isn't that simple when you really look at it. And then from plate scanners, he went to SCSI machines. Have you heard of these? Where they could be parked outside your house and rip all the data that's coming out of your house, from your Wi-Fi to your phone to anything you're doing on your computer with or without Wi-Fi. They're able to sit outside, and this machine only costs $6,000. Right? It's an antenna catcher. That's all that we need to know about it. It's an antenna catcher which plugs into a computer, which shows a bunch of software that will tell you what's coming out of that house. What pictures are they sending? So he's telling me all this, and he's saying, you know that what happened at your temple was part of a larger plan for them to keep hitting the Muslim people and the people from your area, because you guys have a very different philosophy. And he said all this. I get done with the interview. And as journalists, you know this, like, I pre-interview before I put them on camera. You know, I talk to them. And so he gives me all this information. He goes, but I don't want to go on camera. Could you blur out my face and put a different voice on? I said, no problem. We can do that, you know. So I leave that interview. I start driving back from Iowa to Milwaukee, because he's in Iowa at the time, which is about 3 states away, about a 12-hour drive. I start driving back. My car breaks down. It's my dad's old truck, so it just breaks down on the side. So I go to a hotel. I get stuck in that area. I get out of the hotel in the morning to go get a cigarette in the park. It's a baseball field, and I'm a former baseball player. And I'm walking, and out of nowhere, 9 squad cars, SUVs, with men coming out with assault rifles, point their gun at me.
Wow.
This is me, just a normal brown guy in the middle of Iowa, doing nothing wrong but my job, which is journalism, getting surrounded by these people, and they make me strip off my clothes, and it's then they handcuff me, then they take my phone, never give it back, and take me to jail, right? Then release me with no charges, no nothing. The judge, everything it doesn't even make sense. But how can they do that? How can they have full control of their positions that they can catch you in any situation like that? That meeting, what triggers somebody to do this? Were they listening in? Did they even have just somebody in the diner next to us listening in? Or were they just outside on the street listening off the audio of our phone? Because your microphone on your phone is very powerful.
Yes.
It can pick up quite a bit, and it has advanced technology or software algorithms that clean it up for people.
Yeah. And it's always listening. We've realized that. Yeah. Yeah, your phone. I shouldn't laugh really, but I saw something a few months ago, which was a meme on Facebook that said, in the 1950s, people were frightened that the government were wiretapping their phones, and now we ask them for recipes. So you've literally, everyone carries a wiretap around with them willingly, without realizing that they're being listened to constantly, which unfortunately is the truth.
NSA, CIA, FBI, what do you guys have over there? You have Interpol, and of course KGB, and you're talking about everybody that's anybody in the world is in America studying this type of safety protocol. That's what they're going to call it. But what it really is a loss of privacy for the citizen. Yeah. It is a debunking of the freedoms that we enjoy as Americans.
Yeah.
And it's happening live right now, 24/7, and the power structure that's in San Francisco, they're allowing it to happen because they're part of now becoming corrupted right in front of our eyes. And some of it, I have to think to myself, we could stop it. Because we have to elect the right people, put them in office, and stop this. Because each of these agencies don't have the manpower. It's ultimately going to end up at a supercomputer. The supercomputer is going to make decisions. One supercomputer can send out 300 emails, and somebody is cashing in $100. These things happen. These computers communicate. There is control somewhere. But if that control vanishes, or we can never find it, or it's so well hidden, then are we as a society being just run by a group of machines that live in nexus points around the world?
Unfortunately, I think in today, that's probably very largely the truth. That is the case.
Now we have to talk about that, Rachel, as a solution. What do we do, us three, or our group that around us they just imagine us all in a circle right now. What do we do to stop that from happening? Because ultimately it will bond us. Ultimately, we've seen cycles of slavery before. It will bond us, and we will become enslaved to that machine or enslaved to that power structure.
Maybe it's not about seeing freedom as a physical existence, but seeing freedom as something that we access through consciousness, and that we can transcend these controls by evolving our consciousness.
I think like the small, have you ever heard of minimum effective dose, MEDs? No. So we're constantly as scientists, we're looking for MEDs, the fulcrum point, right? Like for you, Rachel, earlier you mentioned homeschooling. This must be a big fulcrum point in your generation or in your DNA as a couple together. This is the first time that somebody's going to get homeschooled like this and with this type of information. So that person's life path will change.
Yeah.
You know,
generations, it's changing.
Now, David and I might talk the logical way. And so what's the number of the tipping point that need to change? How many people need to become awakened so that we can elect these officials and get the old guard out, get the vanguard in, and keep moving, in evolution step or in evolutionary steps.
Yeah.
At the risk of going off on too much of a tangent, I don't think we can ever elect people into the current system and fix the problem.
No.
I think it was Einstein who said, you can't fix a problem using the same thinking that was used to create it. There has to be a complete shift in the way we think and view each other and the way we run the planet. And I'm not saying I have the answers, But if the whole time we're feeding into a system which is corrupt and rigged and broken, it's going to stay that way, I think. And you can put the nicest people into that system, but they'll either get spat out or they'll come out the other end corrupt. Is my understanding of my limited knowledge of politics.
I think it needs to be decentralized myself.
Yeah.
And we need to have decentralized control and work cooperatively together.
I think you're right. I think the aim of democracy is to give you self-governance. That's the whole aim of the system, is to give self-governance, and yet there's no self-governance in region to region. It's all centralized, and one person gets elected, and now there's more mass shootings than there was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I also agree to.
Aren't they?
Yeah. And I also agree to your point, David, that it can take us off the topic because the solutions are difficult to get to. Like, these people will go in there and become corrupt, or they'll be spat out, or they'll never make it, or they'll be killed.
Yes, unfortunately. That is
and we've seen that over and over in America. Mm-hmm. JFK, MLK, RFK, the Black Panther movement, John Lennon, God help us. John Lennon, God help us. That this is, and nobody wants to talk about that power structure still gets more funding than anything else. The military power structure, though it doesn't need it. The same elitist federalist group gets more funding than, let's say, the normal everyday 99%er who lives in the ground in the middle class and works 9 to 5. None of this is happening. Nobody's doling out the money the proper way. Now, I come from India, which has a good and a bad history with debunking empires or moving them on their way. The good part is that we were able to do it with a very large empire. And you guys sit in that empire today, or now the new version, which is, free. And we have a bad version. Now the India that exists is corrupt, where all these people elected it's like a big mafia gang manifesto that lives in India, So in America, in the UK, we have the ability to have these elections, yet they take up most of our time, and they take up most of our head power, and we aren't able to think about these other things like, what am I going to teach my daughter tomorrow? Let me try to teach her to telepath with the dog, and let's see if she can move the dog from here to there, and these amazing experiments,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think my feeling and my outlook, and I think Dave would agree, is that these are distractions. Having the political system and the system in general is kind of a distraction from our power from within, and ability to create from within and to influence our reality. And I think it's about taking that energy back. That's why we don't focus on the Brexit saga that's going on, because it just seems like yet another distraction.
I couldn't tell you anything about Brexit. It's been going on in this country for God knows how many years now, and I saw it for what it was at the beginning. It's just another way to divide the people and turn one person against another, and this versus that, and it's a soap opera. That's what it is.
Maybe that's what it is. Politics is the soap opera of the people.
Yeah, it is. I honestly believe it is. And it's all this fear mongering, if you vote this way, this is going to happen. If you don't vote that way, this is going to happen, and you can lose. We've been watching it disinterested for 3 or 4 years now, however long it's been bloody going on. And we said today, didn't we? Has anything changed in our lives as a result of it? Not a thing. Not a thing.
Yeah.
I do believe. I'm not saying politics is all nonsense. But I think it is used as a kind of global soap opera to keep people occupied and distracted, and I've got friends, and we both got friends and family who do nothing but watch the news and talk about the news. And when you sit them down, you go, well, actually, if you realize that this is all orchestrated and there's people pulling the strings behind it on the media, and you're seeing the same stories playing out, and some of them are actors, by the way. You must have come across this somehow, where you'll watch some kind of attack or catastrophe, and then 2 years later you see something else and there's the same bloody woman in the video, you know, running around crying, and you...
I get an answer to that because we see it a lot, because after with Peacemakers, we ended up going to many, many tragic sites. And what you see is that the human face in trauma does do the same types of things. So there are women, then there are people that believe that they're actors, but sometimes the photo itself is only catching a certain part of that holographic field. And the audience's mind also goes back to a memory and goes, oh, I remember that picture before.
Okay.
Right? But you're absolutely right on about the political nature of discourse. But we have to, at some point, I have to believe that we've come to the best type of government, and we can make the change if we can get people on the ballot box, or get people on the ballot and get the right people to vote, giving them a holiday to vote. This isn't complex ideas, right? These are very simple, but to pass that is like you have to raise $10 million of lobbying, which is crazy, right? Everything costs money. So just to heal ourselves, it costs money. And this ridiculousness of a government like America being a leader in the world and setting the wrong example of traumatizing its own people, you know? And other people must be seeing this. I have to believe other nations are seeing the mass tragedy that's happening here, but nobody's calling it out, you know. And there must be a reason why they're not calling it out.
I don't know how much of it is filtered through the BBC News, or how much of it we don't hear about.
I think it's censored, really. I think it's kind of very focused on, you know, certain aspects of society, a bit like you were saying, the national news where you are, it's kind of focused on the same things. It's the same here, really. That's kind of why we switched off from the news. But yeah, there's always another side to view things, isn't there? And you know, there's figures in history that have shown that, you know, through politics they can change things. And we know about your story about, you know, your experience with the Independent Party, which I haven't spoken much about. I'd like to find out more about that. It's we did a little bit of research, and you know, love the values behind it.
Well, there's a soft launch on it right now. I'm just feeling it out, because I believe when I ran, I said to the public here, I said, I'm an independent Democrat. And they kept asking, what is an independent Democrat? And I was like, well, it's a Democrat. You've been raised Democrat, but now you're thinking more independently. And the same can be true of Republicans, an independent Republican, you know. And so then there forms hopefully a middle path of people who know both sides of the issues and have to make a decision based upon what's happening currently. Because some of these problems are happening so precisely on a city like 9/11 on New York. They're happening in such a way that we have to be able to move, whether it's right or left, independently and quickly. And we don't have a party like that. We don't have a political party that embodies across the world an independent voice, the 99% voice, the voice of the slave trade that's still happening today, the sex slave trade, the slave trade on labor, which is happening out of the Middle East, most of it Indians and Chinese being enslaved. We don't have a voice for the people that are getting paid under the living wage, which is most of the planet. Even in developing worlds, there must be an economy that trumps or rises above the capitalist and socialist economy. I'm betting that it's the time-based economy. Because time has no infinite end. When you look at it to the decimal, the increments of it are infinite, and currency is only 2 digits. So even off a $1 exchange between us, I should be able to mathematically create a formula that covers all of the economy of the world. And I just start a whole new banking system based on that. And it's not as complex as it seems, because as long as I can get 12 to 14 great thinkers in a week-long seminar, we can come up with all the increments to apply to the tribal nations of America.
Mm-hmm.
They could try it first, and if it raises an economy quickly and raises the city quickly, then the rest of the world can use it. But this is all independent thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Which is the key to science, the key to our society, the key to religion is independent thought, I believe. When religion works well, when it doesn't work well. But so at some point, the independent party will become a reality. Right now, I've just built the website, and I started talking to my friends, and I figure over the next decade or so, it'll rise as one of those dissenting opinions.
Mm.
How do you, if you don't mind me asking, I'm not sure how much of a wall you keep between the kind of the ETN disclosure work that you do and your political career. Is there a crossover between the two, or do you find that being involved with one has an impact on the other? Specifically, what I'm getting at here is, do you find that your involvement with the UFO community is used against you negatively in terms of politics, or does it even bother you?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It does. Most common folk of America, and I don't mean to say that in any elitist way.
No.
The commoner of America, if you tell them you believe in extraterrestrials traveling around the universe that might have the ability to communicate to humankind, they start going, yeah, that's true. But if you start talking about it, then they'll start thinking the ridicule part, like, oh, I don't get that, or they don't. So politically, there is an effect. I'm betting that by the time I'm 40 years old right now, so by the time that I'm 60 in 20 years, I will be able to run again or on a platform where we could have this discussion openly. And in 20 years, it wouldn't be looked down upon, and people would actually had made contact with other civilizations. And I think we're that close to this type of contact.
Yes.
I believe, like the Jodie Foster film, we're at that point. We have the technology. Are we using it correctly? Are the right minds in the leadership? So right now, I'm stepping away from politics. Matter of fact, right now I'm just working on Peacemakers, the film, which will be done in about a year and a half, on violence in America. And then I'm teaching at a school here that's Sudanese, Somali, and Ethiopian refugees.
Okay.
Wow. And I'm an immigrant, and I moved over during the Indira Gandhi assassination, and right before that, the separatist movement in Khalistan. So we moved over at a time where we had to flee India because they were politically getting aggressive. And so I grew up as an immigrant, and I wanted to give some of that back to the children here, because what they're coming from, I mean, their parents are born in refugee camps. Their parents can barely speak or they can barely read or write either their own original language or English. And yet they're living in the most complex set of circumstances known to man, in America.
Yes.
So these are the things I'm doing currently. But I still think of all of the serious stuff, the disclosure stuff. I'm working with Steve Bassett on a project. So I still continuously go that direction, or the technology stuff. There's about 12 to 15 of us that work together and exchange technology to investors. And investors can then pick up the technology at a cut rate and at the bottom level or at the ground level, and they can grow with the technology financially. So these are things that I'm doing just to make sure the technology is getting out, because the more people we have, more men and women that we have working on the side of benevolent technology, maybe we're hitting that minimum effective dose where people aren't scared of the technology and they're not using it or exploiting it.
Right.
Can you say more about that technology, actually?
I can tell you that we definitely have the ability to make cars that run on pollutant-free hydrogen vehicles, and most often if we change a fleet of cars out in a country, it'll return some of the ozone in the atmosphere because the water vapor out of the cars. So some cities in America could be changed overnight. The smog would go away. The climate change, the impact that we're having right now would slow down. And that's one type of technology that's out there. Another type is salinization, taking water out of the atmosphere and creating fresh water. This is a big problem. It's not a big problem for us because we have the Great Lakes, but it's a big problem for the Sahara or for the Gobi Desert, you know. There's also technology that we have that does holographic exchanges, like, for example, the Princess Leia type group. And it comes off your phone. You hold your phone in your palm like this, and it just goes through. And now you can talk to Rachel live like this, but she's on a phone like this, so it's wrapping around her. So,
well, and that kind of light field technology exists. Is that what you're saying?
It totally exists. It totally exists. I've seen demos of it, and it also exists at the larger spectrum where you do a hologram of Tupac on a stage, and he's, you know, really engaged in the audience, though he's just a vector field of lights. You know, so we have the ability to minimize it. And, this is all people in my network, so I help them. I help them with contracts. I help them with making the connection to somebody in the network that needs money. So I'm still around doing that, not as much as I was a year ago, because it was only after I started bringing out the technology that I was confronted more with that informant situation. Now the informant is talking to me on the phone or talking to me via text, and people must be able to hear that we're going to meet up and talk about this. So it's the same. We're going to talk about the same people who are part of the white extremist cell but are part of the government.
Right.
Now I'm in more and more deep trouble that I got to fight back from.
Right. Well, I suppose I mean, I may be speaking from a lot of inexperience here, but the answer is largely in transparency, I would think, doing stuff like this and keeping the message out there in the public domain about what you're doing, because the more people are aware, the less able you are to be targeted, perhaps. Is that true? Would you agree?
So catch-22. If you're somebody like me that's behind the camera, the more people are aware, the more dangerous it becomes, because I'm not a celebrity of any sort, right? I also believe that there is the philosophy that we put it out into the open and people will think to themselves, oh, that person won't be harmed because everybody will know it. Well, that person can still be harmed in the most subtle of ways, and they keep messing with that person over time.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't notice it because it's not going to make headline news, or it's not going to be something that we talk about. That's another thing, is we just don't have the bandwidth as a community of international multidimensional people that can actually discuss all the things that happen. I know stuff is happening to Emery right now. I know stuff is happening with my family members right now. I know stuff is happening with Steve constantly. I know stuff is happening with David. I know stuff is happening with Corey Good. I know stuff is happening with all of these people, and they're not able to talk about it day to day. So they just have to have protectors around them that are constantly helping. They move somebody away from targeting them on a lie. Somebody wants to damage their reputation, or somebody wants to damage even downright to their vehicle. I've seen it where one of our investors' brakes were taken out of her vehicles.
Oh my God.
Right, and she's a doctor. So she's a professional, working professional. So even as people start to find out that they're supporting you, do the little local chapters of these neo-Nazi white extremists, do they start to target down on these people?
We hope you've enjoyed the interview so far. We return after this short interval.
The Multidimensional Show is an online and offline platform to share the hidden knowledge about why we are here and what lies beyond our five senses. At the heart
is a sincere desire to point to a universal truth within all mystical traditions and the leading edge of quantum physics, that we are part of a greater consciousness that underlies all of existence, and that we are all one.
Our conferences and events cover subjects such as consciousness, UFOs, ETs, starseeds, channeling, non-duality, astral projection, and quantum physics. We bring together researchers and experiencers from a multitude of different fields to share their knowledge and insights.
Combined with art, music, grassroots projects, and the holistic, we aim to foster social connections, inspire meaningful change, and expand our awareness. Along with interviews, we also offer monthly talks and biannual conferences. To find out more, please visit our website at www.multidimensionalshow.co.uk.
We now offer space in these intervals for those who wish to promote their own business or services. Please get in touch using the email address shown.
Thanks for watching. We now return to our interview.
Yeah, so we really need to keep building that community with each other, don't we? And supporting each other.
Yeah.
I think that's the answer on the ground level, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is the solution, Rachel.
Yeah.
That is the solution. If we can get tens of thousands of 50,000 of people that are in the know, that have influence, that can work together, then we can form a political movement, but we can also form a safety movement, an education movement.
Yeah.
We can form the new enlightenment period.
Yes, and working with our star friends as well, who also guide us.
Yes.
We must.
Yeah.
We must, because we know that they exist. We know that the universe rolls out in such a way that there's Goldilocks zones even around moons. You know, there's Goldilocks zones even on this planet. There's certain parts of the planet you can't live in the Sahara.
Yeah.
It's not a Goldilocks zone, right? So we have every type of being, I think, in the universe on this planet. We are a mirrored microcosm of the universe.
Yeah. I'll go along with that.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say as well that a lot of the races that are coming here from elsewhere have a vested interest in us. And I don't mean from a kind of resource or political agenda. I mean a spiritual interest in us. You know, they want to help and they want to see us flourish and grow and realize our potential. And I do believe that people like yourself, I don't know what your view is on this, it was something I wanted to ask you, but the term starseed effectively is something that gets banded around a lot. The idea that there are souls that incarnate here to do the kind of work that you're doing and that we've started doing over the last few years, and that it's actually a conscious choice before we incarnate to come and have an impact and have an effect. Is that something you would subscribe to, or think that?
I think so, and the way I usually end up saying it is, I think each generation of children are born with prophets, are born with these star seeds, and we can either douse them and drown them out, or we can grow them into strong oaks and redwood trees that can help build a civilization over and over. The star seed, I think also the fact that we're all living during this technological boom, I think it's bringing out the star seed in each of us.
Yeah.
Because each of us is now, I just imagine our grandparents. I imagine my grandparents, my grandfather fought in World War One.
Wow.
Right? World War One or World War Two. And long story short, he was old. He was 80 something when he passed. And he had 10 children. So he had this long life. And I remember his day-to-day pace is completely different than our day-to-day pace. Our day-to-day pace is doing 150 things a day, where his day-to-day pace was doing 2 things a day.
Yeah.
You know, work and home. Yeah. And something like this. And I have to believe that we as a nation, or as a nation of people, or as a planet, have as many conscious people as we need to make the movement happen. How do we get that movement to happen? I think we have to maybe look at the the most competitive political civilization in America, and say, maybe it's something like that. We have to affect the politics of America. Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm not saying from the international waters affect the politics of America, but we as a country can, or we as a people can affect the politics here. You guys can affect the politics there. They're all geopolitical things. The right to privacy, the right to have a nature that's free of pollutants, the right to be able to marry each other without problems, or be able to grow a family in an economy that works. All these seem like basic fundamental rights that go around the planet. So maybe we can galvanize around simple things like that, and then at our events we start having conversations about contact and about larger scope things that people don't think about. And then over there, I think we'll find an elite group on both sides, you know, that we can work with as a movement.
Yeah, we could be beacons for other people and help other people to awaken to that potential in them.
Yeah, lead by example.
Yes.
Be the change that you wish to see in the world, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it is a grassroots thing in the same way that, I mean, I follow the C5 movement because we're active in it and keep as informed as I can about what's going on in that sphere. But it would appear at that level that the ETs kind of tried going to the authorities, didn't get anywhere back in the 50s. And, you know, they met with Eisenhower and were told, no thanks, we're fine. From what we've read and seen on, you know, declassified documents and stuff. And they've gone grassroots now, which I think is where the CE5 movement has come from, is that they're coming to the people instead. And I think that there's a model there that we can follow, actually, you know, and it starts with each of us, you know, just simple things like meditating every day and changing your diet and having some
treading lightly on the earth.
Yeah, treading lightly, and watching your footprint and changing your mindset and the way you think. You know, the change is bound to propagate if it comes from within.
And live peacefully with each other.
Yes, which is a big thing as well.
Yes, if we can master that between ourselves, with our families and those close to us, and have that ripple effect outward into society, then there's a chance that the whole world can be at peace.
Yes,
I think so. I think you guys are helping lead the way. So when you say star seeds, I'm thinking to myself that there must be, out of the 7 billion, at least 1 billion.
Absolutely, at least.
At least. I think 1/7 is like a perfect number.
Yeah.
Even, you know, mathematically it breaks down well.
Yeah.
Now, the internet must be letting us get to each other, because even there's just the invention, we're able to speak. So hopefully we get to chat again and we get to hang out some more. And next time I come to England, I'll swing through.
Yes, it's been lovely to talk to you. I'm conscious that we've run over what we said we were going to do.
Yeah, there's plenty to talk about, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Today I'm lucky because after teaching from Monday through Friday, Saturday you get to just enjoy as like a free day. It's like a Sabbath.
Yeah.
No work today, so I could talk as long as you guys need to.
Yeah, no, we're in no rush to go anywhere, but we're conscious you've got a family to get back to as well.
Yeah, and the audience probably can only retain so much information, so.
Exactly, but if you're happy to talk again, we would be honoured to, actually. We'd love to pick up, because there's much more we could.
How did your Costa interview go? Because I watched about half of it, and I know that the timing is long. You know.
He's a wonderful human being. We
could have carried on for hours as well.
We could have sat talking to him for a long time.
He's got a beautiful energy about him.
Yes.
Same as you, actually. Very gentle, peaceful energy. I like it.
Yes.
He's
And
like an old uncle.
Yeah, funnily enough.
We call him Uncle Costa.
We haven't called
him I'm calling him that, Uncle Costa.
Yeah. Straight after the interview, we started referring to him as Uncle Costa. So we haven't.
During the interview would have been fun too.
I might say that to him actually.
Yeah, no, he's been lovely, and he's helping raise the awareness for us as well, because he sent the interview out to his entire network on ET Let's Talk. So that was like 20,000 people that found out about that interview. And we've seen our numbers go up since then, so, which is great because we're trying to raise awareness here about, you know, our true nature and the fact that there's more to life than the physical, and that we're all connected and we're all one, and it's all about, you know, effectively all about love and consciousness. Yeah. So I know he doesn't do a lot of these interviews because he's quite camera shy, but
I don't either. I'm in a private mode of my life right now, so that's, to be honest, I'm more excited about talking to you guys than I am a lot of people around me.
Oh, and wow.
I don't mean to be like that, but it's a very, very tough situation in Milwaukee.
Okay.
It is the inner city of the inner city. We have a per capita crime rate that's the second in the nation because nobody does it per capita. If you do it per capita, you start to figure out I'm in the worst crime-ridden, impoverished, segregated, and disenfranchised down to the educational system, the city that is most impacted by everything negative.
No,
that's the area that I'm in. That's literally how much darkness I have to inhale every day in this area. So talking to you guys is much better than all that.
Oh, well, bless you for saying so.
That's lovely. I was just going to say that I've reflected on this as well, because Birmingham, probably, I'm not sure if it's quite in comparison to where you are, but many people say it's very dense. I would agree that there is density here, and I think that there's certain people, you know, starseeds, that are drawn to these areas to bring some light into the area,
absolutely,
into that location, and it's needed. And in the heart as well. You're in the heart, aren't you? Birmingham is kind of central UK because it's like the middle. It's the heart.
Yeah.
If you look at it, Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Rachel. Sorry.
Sorry, you go on now. It's all right.
Sometimes I think you hit on it because Detroit goes down. Have you seen what's happened to Detroit over the last, or Michigan? What's happened in that area over the last decade?
No, sorry.
No.
So they're having a lead epidemic. The water is contaminated completely with lead. Their car industry goes down. So this industrialized city of 1 million to 2 million people has now shrunk to like 200,000, 300,000 people. And then the rest of the people just drive in every day.
Right.
And quite a bit of the crime rate has risen. So we have Detroit, Chicago, home of Obama, and Milwaukee. And all three of these around this Great Lakes section are facing off with some of the most diabolical pollution, the most diabolical government corruption. The state of Illinois' governor, I think 3 out of the last 4 were sent to jail.
Oh, wow.
There's quite a bit of an educational demise because nobody cares about educating. They just care about babysitting right now. They're just trying to get the kids into a place so that they're not out on the streets.
Right.
So it's a ridiculous region. And I think some of it has to do with the weather. We tend to find these regions everywhere the winter is too long, the winter is too strong. But how's England doing? That's what I always ask. How's London doing?
We're probably not the right people to ask.
No, we kind of, like we said, we don't really watch the news or tap into those aspects.
How's the day-to-day?
Day-to-day? Well, there's, we had the austerity measures put in place after the economic crash, which hit the US as well. We've seen that funding cuts have taken place. There's been more deprivation. There's food banks now, so people having to rely on those, because of cuts. And I hear a friend saying, that have been on disability benefits. Some people have been cut from those, and they desperately need them. So there's you're seeing sort of changes happening here. But here in Birmingham, there's, to balance it, there's also a lot of people waking up. There's a good community here of holistically minded, alternative minded people. And I think that kind of counterbalances the density that's here as well. But it's the economic situation. It's kind of hit hard as it has in the US, I think.
Yeah, I like what you said earlier. To go back to that I think people like us and yourself are drawn to or placed in places where the healing is needed the most. Because you don't light a candle in bright sunlight, do you? Because it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
You light it in the darkness. So
well said.
Yeah, I think we are drawn to be in those kind of places because that's where the most good can come. So
I agree. Well, and you guys are seeing a growth in contact experiences there, or no?
We've been a little bit stagnant over the winter again because it's been cold, and
us as well.
Yeah,
us as well. Until spring, it doesn't.
Yeah, people don't like sitting out. Well, I mean, we do. We'd sit out all night and freeze to death. But certainly if you're doing an outreach movement to bring people into it, they don't want to sit out till 1, 2 in the morning freezing. So we do run a group here in Birmingham. We have a contact group with 3 or 4 core members who kind of drive it. Myself and Rachel and 1 or 2 others. Nick Treadwell, a good friend of ours. Give him a shout out as well. He's a great guy. But that's something we'll be picking up again now that the weather's warming up and spring has hit here. But last year we were taking people out under the stars who'd never done contact work before and were just seeking, which is what it's about. And we had low flying craft and orbs and non fully manifested ETs around us on the ground. And people coming away changed. And that's what it's about. Really, it's about giving people that kick so that they go and explore and realize that there is a multi-dimensional nature to their existence. So it's something we're picking up again soon. But we've been out over the winter ourselves,
and we've been meditating as well. Because obviously, as you know, contact work isn't just about seeing the bright lights in the sky. Contact work can be a telepathic or a sense or feeling.
I did help out with I did a whole lucid dreaming article.
Oh wow, cool.
And I think lucid dreaming does also, after the meditations, there's a simple technique in meditation you can do, and I've been teaching a lot of people this. You can then, before you fall asleep, tap it again. And your lucid dream will happen. It'll unravel in the first 2 to 3 dreams. And they're so lucid that, there's no way you wouldn't get up and write it down. There's no way. You won't forget it. You could go the whole day, and by the end of the night, still write it down. It's that ingrained.
Wow.
And the technique is simple. It's when you're in your cross-legged position or whichever position you're meditating, actually aim to fall asleep. Okay. Now think of this as a wave of a surf. You're trying to fall asleep. You're getting to that spot, but you're holding yourself awake. Okay. Now it's like a kite. So you don't go too far one direction. Don't go too far to the sleep. You're still in your breath. You're still conscious. You're still focused on your environment, everything interconnecting through you or with you. And you're doing all of that and staying awake. Now, when you go to sleep, you're going to try to tap that same energy when you lay down. And this time, hold it 1 time or hold it twice. And on the 3rd, go to sleep. It is like a slingshot. And then your dream is so lucid. I was able to control myself in the dream consciously.
Wow.
Right? It wasn't just happening to me. I was engaged in it and trying to make the best decision. And one time, it felt like time travel. I woke up in another man's body. I could tell because my hands and everything looked a little bit different. I was in the living room, and I could still remember the dream to this day, and looking out the window and seeing the advanced civilization that's there. And walking back, and it being so natural to go to the loaf of bread sitting on the kitchen countertop, and the woman coming out of nowhere and kissing me, and me realizing that's not the same girl. not the same person, and her starting to recognize that I had something uncomfortable about me.
Right.
So
You kind of maybe shifted into a future incarnation of yourself, or something, or parallel incarnation of yourself. Yeah.
Correct.
That's awesome. No, we've explored a little bit the idea that contact happens in lucid dreaming states as well.
We had an interesting experience actually. That reminded me, I think it was last week, you actually put the silent intention to have a contact experience in dream state.
I did, and you got it.
As I got the contact experience, I had a dream where I was with ET, otherworldly beings. Nordic beings, so it's quite.
That's
awesome. I hadn't even told Rachel. We were laying in bed together, falling asleep, and I was like, right, I want to make contact in my dream tonight, and then she had the contact. So they aimed just slightly off by a degree and hit the wrong person.
One time, try to put the intention of seeing each other in the contact experience, or in the dream state. Put the intention out. I do it with my girlfriend right now. I say to her, I'm going to see you in your dreams tonight.
Yeah.
Right. And she'll tell me tomorrow if I was in her dreams. And oftentimes I would say more than 3 out of 10, I'm in her dream.
That's great.
And so
sorry, go on.
Well, I was going to say it's just a good use of time. That 8 hours of sleeping, instead you could be with your friend,
Put it to good use. Yeah. It's something I'd like to experiment with actually is shared dream states. Me and my sister used to do this actually when we were children. We had a very strong connection, and we had several dreams where we woke up the following day and realized that we could recount the same dream almost word for word because we'd been in it together. So
wow.
Yeah.
How many years apart are you?
6 years between us. Yeah.
That's awesome.
We were going back a long time now, when we were children, but and it wasn't something we were consciously trying to do. It's just something that happened.
I'm wondering, in good environments, a good family environment, this could happen.
Yeah.
This could happen quite naturally. Or I think with my brother and I, same situation. We were so poor we had to sleep next to each other in a bed sometimes, and we go back to back. And there must be shared dreams that were happening at that time, but consciously we wouldn't talk about it. We just go outside to go play basketball. Right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot happening in dreams.
Yeah, there's a fantastic book, just to before I forget along this subject, there's an amazing book I read many years ago. Around about the same time I came across your work actually, which at the time was free. Unfortunately now I don't think it is anymore. It was an ebook called The Phase, written by a Russian scientist who was researching lucid dreaming states and how to induce them easily. And his work was fantastic. He came up with a set of tools you could use both just before you went to sleep and when you woke up, in order to get yourself into an out-of-body state. He didn't describe it as out-of-body, but I did it and left my body a couple of times, and stood looking at myself on the bed. So, it is. But simple techniques like imagining you're swimming just before you go to sleep, and you feel the water around you and you hear the noise, of the birds flying over. And as you drift off to sleep, that becomes your lucid dream. But because you've entered into it consciously, you're still conscious in the dream. And then you can fly around and make things manifest and have full control. And it works. And it's awesome.
I think that's what people are trying to unlock.
Yeah.
Because it's an ultimate experience of extending life. Now, and I said this in the article, you're going to extend your life because everything about your life is memory. So if you have memory bookmarks throughout your life, you're able to live a longer life. It's almost like having more bookmarks in a book. It's a fatter book, Now, if you're able to exchange your dream state for conscious expression, you've extended your life.
Yeah.
So in percentages, maybe 10 to 15%.
Yeah.
So instead of living to 100, you're living to 120.
Yeah. And I think we tap into higher aspects of ourselves in dream states. And the more frequently we can do that lucidly or consciously, the better for our growth and development as well. And ET contact is something I think happens in dreams as well. So
it does. Probably more vivid. Because the one when you guys do CE5, we could talk about that and people will probably get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
When you guys do CE5, are your eyes closed, or does somebody keep their eyes open?
We tend to meditate with our eyes shut.
Yeah, we have intuitively felt like keeping our eyes open at times. You did it actually.
Yeah.
You had your eyes
Our
open
last one.
at the last one, and you were drawn to look at certain parts of the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically, and we don't follow a set protocol. You know, we tend to go with what we feel. But yeah, typically we will sit and listen to one of Stephen Greer's pre-recorded meditations out in the field, and then we'll open our eyes after doing the vectoring and the remote, projecting, and watch the sky. But yeah, on the last time we went out, I had a very strong urge or instruction, for lack of a better word, not to close my eyes and to keep staring at a point in the sky. And while the meditation was running, we had a craft flash in and out again. So
Nice.
I think you are guided and communicated with, and when it is an intentional appearance. So, but we talked to Costa about this as well, didn't we? About how, is there a rigid set of protocols? Because some people do one thing and another group will do another, and it is largely down to whatever you feel works for you, I think.
Think about it as a technique, not a protocol, like the technique of swimming or the technique of playing an instrument. Like whatever you do naturally to get into that zone, that comfortable zone, where you're not in fight or flight, but you're in unite. And then I've also, at times had it where the voice will say, "Now open your eyes," or "Look this way," and I'll turn and I'll look. In fact, at Crestone, the one in Sirius, the CE5 that we documented in Sirius, that happens about the beginning of the film. I was the first one. I was in the circle, and something told me to look to the south, and it was it just said, "Look to the south," and I opened my eyes and I looked to the south, and in comes this orb flying slowly, but it's kind of wavering. It's not doing the straight flight. And then so everybody opens up their eyes, because as soon as one person sees it, we usually gently say, "Does anybody else see that in the sky, 10 degrees up in the south sky?" We'll describe it, and everybody looked, and I said it, and everybody looked, and we all brought it in, and it crafted right over us.
Wow.
Right, and slowly, and then we felt this warm air drop on us. And I never get to describe it in the film the way I felt it, but the way the other people felt it. I thought we had video of it, but almost everybody talks about it differently when the camera comes on. But the warm air felt like water, but there was no water.
Wow.
It was that much of a sensation. And there's no way in my mind that I'm imagining just warm water being dumped on us.
No.
And then that thing stayed there and just then hovered off. And it was about the size of, well, you saw it in the film. You saw one of them in the film. That wasn't the first one. That one I had the camera on, but we told everybody for the first round we won't put the camera on. Right? Because I think everybody should do that. Don't turn the camera on the first one.
Yeah. We don't take cameras with us.
I think so too.
We don't take cameras when we go out.
No.
So.
When you take the cameras, the focus becomes trying to catch an image, like trying to hunt an image down.
Yes, rather than trying to initiate contact. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I've always had this strong feeling that it's almost impolite to record what you're doing, because the experience is for you here, not to show to other people. And we've said this before. We said this in Costa's interview, didn't we? The contact experience is just that. It's an experience. It's not something you watch on a YouTube video, So, but don't get me wrong. I think done well, like Sirius was, it has its place. It's what woke me up and made me go and try it. But I've always taken the stance since then that if you don't believe what I'm telling you, come and sit in a field with me.
Now that we're on internet TV, by the way.
Pardon?
I can smoke on internet TV, right?
You can do what you like on this interview.
Yeah, you've been vaping, haven't you?
I've been subtly grabbing my vape, but if you're going to spark a real cigarette,
I'm smoking the American Spirits for.
Maybe not.
I don't think you can hand me a cigarette through the screen. It would be good if you could.
I'm smoking the American Spirits for all of indigenous citizens of the world. You know?
Spiritual experience, I see.
Yeah, no, we agreed very early on when we started doing these kind of. Oh, go on.
It's the only one that's 99% organic tobacco.
That's good.
So nothing else in it.
It's quite healthy then.
It's healthy, I think.
Yeah.
Because
Can you ship me over a crate?
Yeah, I think I need to get you a carton. Next time I come, I'll put it in my bag for England.
Well, we're going to go for a shisha later.
We are actually. That's
Yeah.
it's date night tonight. So we're going to go and sit in a nice Turkish bar and share a shisha.
I went yesterday for a shisha with my girlfriend as well, and then today I'm going to go hang out with Ben Reiki. Have you ever run into this gentleman?
No. Another one.
He's a filmmaker. Oh no, I mean he's just a filmmaker and he doesn't dabble in this stuff. But we have talked about doing a feature film together about the murder because it's so complex. The amount of we haven't even gotten into the secret societies or the fraternal orders.
No.
You know, and everybody generally tries to get away from them. And I tend to say, my uncle's a Freemason. My grandfather was. I get their place in society. Men need a certain order to belong to. You know, if it's not a religion, it's some sort of order. Even if it's a bowling club, it's still it's an order that they belong to. And I wonder if women will start to have fraternal or maternal orders and be part of it.
I was just about to say, Rachel.
Sorry to interrupt, but yes, there is a movement called Red Tent, the Red Tent movement.
Red Tent.
And women gather normally around the new moon.
Oh, the new moon. That's perfect.
Yes, and we'll just be actually. We'll share our stories and experiences. We'll talk about the monthly cycles. We'll talk about experiences and maybe meditate or do the simple things. Share some food. And
can you give out wisdom from those meetings in like a journal or something that comes out?
The wisdom is normally shared within the circle. Any insights, understandings. The wisdom is very much a verbal one. We don't write anything down. So it's unstructured, really. It's like unstructured.
I've always thought that women have clairvoyance as one of their sentient gifts.
Yeah.
As well as telepathy.
Yes.
And clairvoyance is that ability to see the future. And I'm wondering sometimes if your journals might actually be like a Nostradamus type prediction of this or this or this that needs to be recorded.
Yeah, that's an idea. Actually, that reminds me of a story of days gone by when in tribes, the men would kind of consult the women during that time of the month and ask them for their predictions or their insights, and it would help the men guide them in the decision making. So there's a partnership going on.
Wow.
Between the
especially with pregnant women. Especially with pregnant women, I think clairvoyance goes up, according to the Vedic traditions, because you have two conscious bodies in one body, and whether it's male or female in the womb will also dictate the clairvoyance then.
Wow.
You know, and not that stock traders are going to use it to go trade stocks, but they might, because you set the pace for the culture. If you've ever looked at immigrant culture around the globe, women generally still encapsulate the culture, whereas the men start to wear suits and start to go out and have to be parlay with the crowd. Over here, women keep the culture. So if you guys were clairvoyants and people go to you to get that information, you're also setting the cultural step. You know.
Yeah, that's something to consider.
Yeah.
That red tent, you call it.
Yes, red tent. We tend to meet around the new moon, which is actually a more intuitive time.
My mom does, they call them kiddie parties. And so it'll be a group of Punjabi women, about 15 or 16 of them, bringing food together like a potluck. And then they all sit together and and talk about each other's families and who has a problem with which family and what advice do you need to give.
It's kind of similar, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so there are maternal orders.
Yes, they are, but they're kind of underground.
They're growing, hopefully. They're growing, hopefully, right?
Yes, they are. Yes, it's a worldwide movement.
Yeah,
That's
I heard
awesome.
of it before we got together.
No, but you
Didn't know it existed. Yeah.
You've just been educated, haven't you? You read up on in the manual that we've got.
Yeah, I sat and read the Red Tent manual the other day. Yeah, it's very enlightening. Yeah.
Oh, that's privy information right there.
Yeah.
See, educational, I think men need to know about
absolutely.
Oh, you're right. And we have the cycle as well with the new moon, but not as heavy.
Yeah, at the last Red Tent, a woman actually is doing research and writing a book on the lunar cycle, and she's saying that men also have followed this kind of ebb and flow during the lunar cycle, dependent on when they were born within the lunar cycle. So, for instance, somebody born at the new moon would tend to feel more energized and more creative at that time, and have a dip at the opposite end of the cycle. And that's the same across both genders.
Could our personality differences be linked to the moon cycle when we're born? Like instead of the 12-month horoscope, having a 4-week cycle of saying, okay, when were you born? What time were you born? Look back to when the moon was. And you probably could align yourself with these types of traits that would help you, or these types of traits that would harm you.
Yes, there are personality traits. Actually read up mine. I was born just before then. Was it just after the last quarter? So during the waning moon, when the moon is almost dark, and apparently have a very meditative, intuitive, reflective kind of personality. Whereas Dave was born.
There's there's 8 to 16 cycles of the moon, so the 16 cycles would be exceptional. Do you find yourself finding those types of people that are born the same time?
I haven't done much research into it. This is just from the last meeting where Red Tent Circle, where this woman came along to do some to educate us and give her kind of insights from her research. I haven't really looked into it very much, but
I look forward to talking about it. My girlfriend is getting her shoes on, so we're headed to something.
Okay.
It's been wonderful to talk to you, Amar. We've gone on for 2 hours actually. This is the longest interview we've done yet.
Might have to break it into
I think we might have to upload it in 2 halves. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, saves us doing one next month.
I saved you some time.
It's been a pleasure. If you had to finish on one final statement, a message you'd like to put out there to anybody who watches this and makes it through to all of them, other than well done for listening for 2 hours, what would it be? What would be your kind of statement?
I think we have to chronologically put ourselves in time, and we have to find that objective timeline that we fit in. And right now, our generation is interconnected and is more intense about finding the justice and the light and the positive things in civilization. And as long as we can unify each other over time, in the next 20 years, I think we're going to see dynamic growth around the planet, around spirituality, around consciousness, around technology, around politics and governance, around education. And hopefully this helps shed some light on where we are in that time. This interview, this conversation, because that, as a documentarian, that's always what I go back to, because I'm just documenting time. I'm trying to just show it as it is and not spin it too hard in either direction. And I wish you guys great luck, and I wish the audience great luck in everything they do. And when you said blessings, I felt this warm energy, shoot up my spine, and these are those words, so blessings to you, and blessings to London, and blessings to everybody that's doing stuff over there and around the planet. I know you guys have such a diverse planetary audience.
Yeah, we really do.
Certainly.
Yeah. Well, thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you, Amar.
Yeah, and have a wonderful afternoon, and namaste.
Yeah.
Namaste.